All right, looks like online we have Erica Grindy, MCAT, Christina Dewar, Maddie Scott, Randy Arnold, Ryan Stutzman, Carrie Powers, Flana McClarty, Griffin Smith, Alicia Buckholz, Michael Tester, and in the room we have Chris Lounsbury, Commissioners Slot Vero, Allison Franz, and myself, Cheryl Hartman.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Only 2 items. Anything need to be pulled out or discussed separately?
No, I'm good with that consent agenda. Love to see it made real.
Second. Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Action items, we only have 4. Okay, Flana McClarty.
Hi, Commissioners. I have before you today an application with the City of Missoula to rezone 3 county-owned parcels in the development park. I'm going to pull up a map just so we can orient ourselves a little bit. So just a little background on these parcels. They were created during the subdivision process in the early 2000s, and just want to point out that parks or greenways are not required to be part of industrial subdivisions. When they were created, there was a covenant that the Property Owners Association was responsible for maintaining these areas. And since that time, the Property Owners Association no longer has enough dues-paying members or leadership to provide maintenance in these areas, and they have fallen into disrepair. So in 2023, the county sent all the property owners in the area a notice and ballot stating that it was our intention to sell these parcels to help fund deferred maintenance to the stormwater system in the area so that we could transfer ownership of the stormwater parcels to the City of Missoula, as this area was annexed, I believe, in 2018 to the city. The property owners voted in favor of the county selling these park parcels and transferring the stormwater parcels to the city. In 2024, the county listed these 3 park parcels, 4, 6, and 8. They're highlighted in orange on this map, and listed them for sale. Park 6 is the only parcel that received an acceptable offer, but that offer was contingent on rezoning the property, which the commissioners approved in June of 2024. So that following August, we entered into a contract with IMEG Consultants Group so that they could help oversee the rezone of these 4 park parcels. Oh, sorry, 3 park parcels. And so as part of that process, we just have to submit an application with the City of Missoula. We've gone through the pre-application process, and it was determined that the proposed zoning, so currently these parcels are zoned as public lands, and we are proposing to rezone them similar to the adjacent neighboring properties, which is industrial. And that the proposed zoning is in accordance with the Missoula 2045 land use plan and has the best interest of the city as a whole in mind by providing the most appropriate use of the land and allowing future landowners to implement the highest and best use of these properties moving forward. The fee for the rezone with the city is $7,892, and that will be paid for out of the sale of the parcels. And I guess the next steps after getting the application signed are to submit to the city, and then it'll go through the public hearing process with them for rezone.
Thank you.
Yeah, excited to see this happen.
Just long drawn out.
No
Thanks for the
kidding.
detail.
No
Wow.
kidding. Yeah,
It has been a drawn out process, yes.
yeah. Well, get it rezoned and get it sold and have some development happen there.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
I
Yeah.
second. Any further discussion? Thanks for shepherding
Yeah,
this along.
thank you, Plana.
Any
Yes,
further
absolutely.
discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, next we have, Lonsberry.
Hello,
Yeah.
good morning, Commissioners. So you have before you a request to sign a resolution that would oppose a piece of legislation being proposed by Senator Greg Hertz. I believe it's SB 254, if I remember the bill number correctly. And basically what it would do is it would prohibit associations that are funded with public funds from lobbying on behalf of the members of the association. And so this would have a pretty significant impact, not just to the Board of County Commissioners and the fact that you are a part of MACO, the Montana Association of Counties, which lobbies on our behalf during the legislative session representing all 56 counties, but it would impact things like the Clerk and Recorders Association, the Elections Administrators Association, and County Attorneys Association, Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, these groups that are made up of public officials who are elected by the public and during the legislative session as an administrative arm of the state, which Missoula County is, are really the only ones who can actually provide necessary feedback on how legislation will actually impact the work that they are required to do under statute. Again, the counties really perform a number of state functions on behalf of the state. And we do that in partnership with them under the rules that they lay out. And so if we are unable to use associations to provide input to that lawmaking process, that would in essence mean that each of those individual elected officials would be responsible for traveling to Helena for every bill that might have an impact in the area of law that they do. And so, for example, while we are early in the legislative session, there are already nearing 200 bills that Missoula County is tracking across the number of categories and areas that those associations do most of the heavy lifting on as far as providing input on the bill drafting and impacts that they will have. And so it would be a pretty significant expense if all of a sudden all of those elected officials had to constantly be traveling to Helena to do that. Montana Association of Counties sent out a request basically asking every county in the state of Montana to participate in signing a resolution that would kind of allow them, that would kind of be our show to the legislature that we would like our associations to be able to lobby on your behalf. And so this resolution does that. Should also point out in the resolution, it draws some good comparisons. The National Association of Counties, the National Association of State Legislators, the National Governors Association, the National Association of Attorneys General, all are allowed to lobby at the federal level and at state levels. Because they are considered trusted partners or intergovernmental partners, those associations, because they're made up of elected officials and there is a recognition by the federal government that actually allows a special exemption for them to be able to lobby. And in essence, this would cut only local governments out of the ability to have that, while it would continue to allow the state to participate in those associations and have those associations lobby on their behalf. So with that,
I'm
my
very excited.
request is that you sign that resolution and we
Yeah.
will
Yes.
provide it.
Really, really excited to sign this and hope that this bill does not become law.
Agreed. Any further discussion?
I just don't know, does Griffin have any questions?
No questions on that. Do you know when this hearing is?
I have not seen 254 scheduled yet, but yesterday the sponsor mentioned that it would be coming soon to Senate local government. So I'm assuming maybe next week based on that statement.
All right, thanks.
Do you have a motion?
That was my motion. Yeah, let's sign this.
Okay, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Michael Tester. Subdivision exemption application.
Good morning, Commissioners. So what you have before you is a request for the board to review and sign the subdivision exemption application to create a utility lot to be conveyed to the city of Missoula for municipal water purposes. It is located up at what we know as the Miller Creek gravel pit on the north end. It would be adjacent to the current water tank that is there. The exemption being used is under MCA 76.3.201(1)H, is created for right-of-way or utility sites. Any subsequent change will be subject to the requirements of that chapter. I've had a utility statement signed by the city already. Confirmation meeting the standards signed by myself, and you, the board, will need to sign the affidavit in the form and the landowner's agreement included in it.
We're creating an easement for a municipal water system.
It's actually creating a separate lot.
We're creating a
Not-
separate
not
lot,
just an
the
easement,
subdivision
yes.
exemption.
Correct.
What's the size? This is a pretty small chunk, right?
It is. It's about 100 by 150 feet approximately,
Yeah.
1/3 of an acre.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Let's do this. There's my motion.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mike.
Thanks.
Okay, last one, Randy Arnold.
Good morning, commissioners. So I'm bringing to you this morning a request that the Board of County Commissioners approve the restatement of the North Hills Allied Waste Conservation Easement, initially or originally granted in 2010. In this restatement, they're looking to make some adjustments and changes in that original easement. The overall objective is to make it easier for 5 valleys in the city to implement the vision for some trail, multi-use trail connectivity. But very specifically, they needed to restate how 5 Valleys Land Trust and the city of Missoula will then be co-grantees and hold separate parcels or pieces of that easement. 5 Valleys holding the remainder of it while the city would hold the trail easement. And they also needed to restate the trail easement particulars as to its location and some of the terms. And I also have Ryan Stutzman from 5 Valleys Land Trust on this morning in case you have questions about the restatement or the parallel city process.
Do we have a map so folks could see? This is next to the Bluebird Hills Conservation Easement too, right?
It is.
Yes.
And and Ryan might be able to share his screen for a map, and I can also look to pull up what was attached to the request for commission action. Ryan, did you have that available, or I can look to
I
grab that?
do. Yeah, give me just a second here.
Oh, Cheryl has it, but just for folks.
Great for
Yeah, this is just a little.
this media to.
Yeah. All right, hang in there, everyone.
Did you want to look at
Can everyone see that?
it?
You're right, but it's tough for folks to,
Put that in a context.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
don't know if there is.
So let's go up to this one. So the subject property is outlined in dark black here. Bluebird is immediately adjacent to the west, and then the sort of dotted line outline is the Allied Waste landfill, the current landfill.
Okay.
So that's kind of where you're at. The Bluebird trailhead parking lot is kind of right here. So it's between, or it's immediately east of Grant Creek, up in the North Hills.
Thank you. Do you have any?
No, I feel good about this.
Yes, let's make it so. Okay, I second Slotnick's.
Feeling good about it.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Thanks for jumping on, Ryan, and thanks for presenting it, Randy.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners.
Yeah, thank you.
Any correspondence? Legislative update?
Yeah, quick
Allison, Chris?
quick legislative update here for you, commissioners. So on House floor today, 2 of the tax bills that we've talked about a couple of times will be moving forward. The first is House Bill 231. So that is the bill from Lou Jones. This is the homestead and comstead exemption, might be more colloquially referred to as those 2 things. There have been some minor amendments to that bill that create a kind of graduated tax structure more similar to some of the others. So we will continue to support that bill as it moves through the process. Again, we don't know what the final bills will look like. The other bill that's moving forward is Representative Thane from our delegation's bill, which again is the is based more, is similar in some ways, but is based more on the idea of a graduated. So it exempts the first $50,000 of people's property. And then for each increment above that, the tax rate goes up at a certain amount. So it's a much more graduated process, similar to the way you might think of it as the way federal income tax works. So the first amount is exempt, and then you might pay a low percent on one. And as you earn more, it goes up, similar here with home value as it goes up.
So what's the real functional difference between that one and is Mr. Jones is at the graduated, if I remember right from previous versions, with Mr. Jones's bill, put a lot more of the financial oomph on the very, very top.
And that is still the case even with the system that's created. But what it did is create a uniform rate for long-term rentals. So long-term rentals would not have a graduated. They'd have just a flat rate that is lower than the current 1.35% that's in state law. And then for primary residences, it would create this kind of graduated piece, and similar for commercial properties that are commercial properties under class 4.
So in all this conversation about the burden shift, would it be accurate to say with Mr. Jones's bill, the shift isn't out onto other tax classes, it's more up?
So
within class 4, but just up
it,
to the top.
it would still do both.
It would do both.
Because there aren't enough properties at the high end to completely shift 100% of the burden in my reading of what would happen on that. And to be fair, I'm not legislative fiscal division. I don't have the entire state picture in the way that they try to do, but it would create some shift based on my read out, but not to the extent that would potentially happen under Representative Thane.
There you go. Okay, that was my sense of the difference, was Mr. Thane's bill would push more out and Mr. Jones's bill would push more up.
Yeah.
In general themes across the other
taxing
classes.
And Jones is just focused within class 4.
Well, as Chris was saying, some out,
but much smaller.
Much smaller, with really putting an emphasis on the up. That
homes that are valued at more than, I think it's $1.5 million.
There's not that many of them.
Right.
They're out there, but there's not that many such that this is really going to carry the load. Some of the load would actually have to go out.
But right now, we're supporting both as we watch.
We are supporting both because we don't know at the end of the day which of these two vehicles. Right. It is unlikely that both of these vehicles would become law because they have some competing ability to do things, right? Different mechanisms, different property tax values, and those kinds of things. So at some point, there'll be some version of a compromise bill, or one of these two bills will be the one that folks kind of line up behind. But both of them would be beneficial to residential taxpayers. So for right now, we would stay in support of both.
The process by which a compromise is reached will flush out details that right now
that we'll have a better idea.
But I have to just say it personally, so appreciate the intentionality behind both of these and the recognition that the high residential property taxes are due to the greatest extent because residential property has increased in value far more swiftly than the other property tax classifications, and adjusting a tax rate to account for that increase in value could provide more real relief. Very glad that that's the message embedded in both these bills, not we need to punish local governments for spending money to do the jobs that they're statutorily obligated to do. Yeah, that's way too many words.
We do need some direction from you all.
He like it.
Which works.
I do want to talk to you guys about a bill where we could use some direction from you. This would be House Bill 378, which is known as the inclusionary zoning bill.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with inclusionary.
I'm familiar with inclusionary zoning.
So just a quick recap, though, in case folks are not familiar with this. This is the idea that in inclusionary zoning, you can put requirements in your zoning that would allow for things like density bonuses and other things based on limiting the amount that a home could sell for based on economic factors. So you could, for example, have low-income housing be a requirement of some zoning. That actually used to be the law prior to the last legislative session. The only place that really had inclusionary zoning was the Greater Bozeman area. As you rightly pointed out, Commissioner Slotnick, that was removed as an authority during the 2023 legislative session. House Bill 378 would undo the legislative action that happened in 2023 and allow inclusionary zoning in both counties and cities again. It was not a tool that was used in Missoula County, but we do generally kind of support affordable housing and the need for affordable housing in Missoula County. So the question is whether you would like us to potentially get behind inclusionary zoning as a tool that could be available to you. Again, there's no requirement that you use it, but it would put that tool back in as one of the options.
think
I
it's necessary
totally
that we
would.
need
It's, yeah.
a
Okay.
tool, that toolbox, but maybe just for a history lesson, what was the opposition or how did this come about?
So there was real concern that in the city of Bozeman, and I don't want to speak as an authority on what's happening in the city of Bozeman because I am not. My understanding, though, was that the challenge around this was it was being seen as being used only in certain areas to, in essence, create areas where you had lower and more moderate income housing, and then potentially it not being used in areas where that might be considered more affluent or other things. And there was a concern that it was not coming out of the governor's housing task force and others, that this was not the right tool, that the right tool was really that it was a zoning issue reform that needed to happen. And of course, we saw a massive reform to zoning for municipalities last legislative session as well. And that this was not the right tool for local government to be using.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
So
there's no silver bullet in any of this, and adding it, so many metaphors here. Adding another tool to the toolbox is great, and the idea is to use all these tools judiciously with lots of thought and care about the context within which you're using them, and that's how we protect our community from creating a concentrated little neighborhood of poverty, which is what the governor was
Concerned
getting at. Yeah, and I think that we can be careful enough to use this tool when appropriate.
okay, so we'll
Thank
draft a
you.
message. Yeah, we'll draft a message of support then based off our housing folks, and then message, and we will get that sent off to our delegation.
Toolbox, a specified toolbox analogy, metaphor. What's your
Really need one.
favorite unique tool?
Favorite unique tool.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, the angle finder.
Oh.
You know that one? You can squeeze this thing into any angle, loosen
Oh,
the wing nut, and then tighten it back up, and then
You know,
bring it over
Any,
here,
any angle.
and then cut according to that angle without having to do math.
I think that's appropriate for this one. Well done.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay.
I like the primitive, simple stuff.
I like the fact that you came up with the tool because Ed, Juanita asked, Commissioner Vero asked me that question. I would have said the flathead screwdriver. It can be a flathead screwdriver. It can be a Phillips screwdriver. It's a chisel. You can open a can. It's all in reality, you can use a flathead screwdriver for everything. You do know, as to say, that is my go-to tool for everything because I'm relatively sure I can do anything with that I am capable of doing, which is not much in the world of being handy. So thank you for input on that, Bill. We'll get that message drafted. We are sending on those. The last bill that I was going to just bring up for you guys that we're sending on today is on the Senate side, and it is Senate Bill 175, I believe. Sorry. Really quickly get my computer back open here. Find the email from. It never fails that the one that I think that it is not, and I go to search for is not the one that my computer pulls it up for. Pretty sure it's 175. Yes, Senate Bill 175, which Missoula County has been supporting. This bill is allowing for streamlined public hearing notices related to when you revise zoning. And so what this would allow you to do is publish the kind of what the generalized pieces of the changes are when you're changing zoning in a given area. It just kind of streamlines that process, makes it a little more tight, and sets very clear deadlines for the 45 days that they have to be posted and those kinds of things. So we are supporting that. We supported that in committee. It's out of committee and now on the Senate floor and moving forward. So we'll send that message to our delegation so that they know.
It just makes it faster?
It actually just, it really should be thought of in a large way as a cleanup bill, in the fact that it more clearly identifies what needs to be in each of those public notices and how long those public notices need to be posted when you are amending an already existing zoning that is that has occurred. So it's not changing like when you want to zone something, but when there are amendments to zoning.
Got it.
And you might remember that you guys went through some pretty significant zoning amendments as you updated the zoning code to the current zoning code that we're using.
Yeah.
And so this would just kind of, again, tidy up that process. So our planners were in support of that because, again, it makes it a much more clear and easy process for the public to follow when there are zoning amendments instead of kind of a more complicated piece. Because as you can imagine, a lot of what happens is written in Technese
Yeah.
language and isn't that. So this will help to make it a little easier again for the public to follow that process. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that is where we are on Thursday. We'll have another update for you on Tuesday of next week or at the next admin meeting. So,
Thank you, Chris.
yeah, thank you guys.
Any upcoming events, invitations? Okay, have a great morning, everyone.
Thank you all.
Yay. Thanks.